I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is the Stoneopolis mod pack. Now, I've been punching my way through this Stoneopolis mod pack one quest at a time, and I've started to kind of, I guess you would say, shape from the inside out this little base we have going on here. And I feel like I've been progressing at a pretty quick pace. And today we're going to continue our journey into this mod pack and on to more automation, which we just unlocked last episode. So today I thought it would be a good idea to start, well, automating. And I think I went a little bit overboard here in this automation, which, to be fair, is just a bunch of wood. So because of our tree automation, I had plenty of wood to be able to craft tons of wooden hoppers and tons of chests to automate all of these strainers. And my goal is to have 4 strainers, so 2 sets of each strainer on 2 separate sides, because I did notice some recipes, for example, the eroding water uses different meshes for different things. So over here I can have an iron mesh and I can keep a regular mesh over here. And technically I ended up making 16, so 8 on each side of these double strainer setups. Now, is this overkill? I don't know yet, but I figured that I would go ahead and get some pretty nice infrastructure set up, because it does seem like in the future rates are going to start getting significantly lower for the higher end resources. And when rates go down, our infrastructure, well, goes up. And so now at this point, there has been a couple of things that we need to get as quickly as possible. That is, 1, iron. We also need copper. And so copper has its own sort of processes. Iron is actually kind of easy to obtain at this point, now that I have a few things automated, such as charcoal and also our void nuggets. But things like copper and tin are still fairly manual, as we have to still harvest all of the leaves for those things. Now, I will say, hold on, come a little closer. A little bit. All right, no. A little closer. There we go. Okay. Whew, goodness. The leaves for both of those things are still very manual. And I don't think setting up the garden cloches are going to significantly change that. At least not yet, however. So it is still the manual task of placing the saplings down and then harvesting all of the leaves, and then now tossing them inside of this automated system. And same goes for getting dirt and to make sand for right now. But it does seem like that whole process is about to change, because judging by the quest, it looks like we're going to be getting into a bit more of the heavy machinery. And our next step is it wants us to go ahead and make a mixer. So today is going to be twofold. We should be able to, 1, complete this quest chapter, and also talk a little bit about how we can route power around our base using immersive engineering. And there's a couple of cool tricks that I'm excited to be able to show you. Now, for 1, I want to continue utilizing these thermoelectric generators for right now. And we should be able to continue scaling these up, and these are actually fairly cheap. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a few more, get a few more of these set up, make a few more of these LV wire connectors, and then let's talk about how we're gonna get power from here, potentially through this wall and into this massive room that I've cleared out. Now, real quick, before I start all of that madness, I do want to make a couple of things that I think are going to be pretty helpful. And that is going to require some aluminum. And yes, I am going to have a much less janky setup for the press here momentarily. But utilizing this aluminum here, we should be able to make some interesting things. So 1 is a crate. So with the treated wood, we can make a crate. And this is a pretty neat sort of block. It kind of works like a shulker box. So we should be able to, for 1, put items in it. And then we can break this block, right? And it retains the items inside of it. And so if I place it back down, it still has those items. So it's kind of like a shulker box. There's also some other ways of transferring fluids. There's some tanks that are really nice that are built into immersive engineering. Believe me, there's a ton of tools, but we actually have a backpack. And I want to make this right here. So I have some red leaves, and I can use this to make some red dye. And then I can use some of that aluminum and this block to make a backpack. Yes. I mean, you can kind of call it a backpack. It is a toolbox, and it's going to do a couple of things. 1, it's going to store a couple of our tools. So each one of these slots can hold different things. These can hold tools. This can hold food for us, so we can keep a stash of apples in here. Then we have a wiring section, and then we have stuff that can hold anything. So any other thing that we may want to keep in here, like tools or any other thing like that, we can fit it in these slots. So it is a pretty nifty little backpack. However, this little block, like, it can be placed down and stuff, but it is still like a pretty janky little item. It doesn't like instantly pop into existence or anything like that, and there's no hotkey to be able to access it. But it does look pretty awesome being held down at our side. I mean, when we walk around just carrying a toolbox everywhere. It just reminds me of seeing my dad there, you know, hollering at me to hold the darn flashlight. You know, that's kind of what it reminds me of. So I decided to put in about 16 of these thermal electric generators, and this is a really nice setup for these, just making sure that you have all of the water running down a single line, and then just like this with your lava down the middle. This is going to be plenty of power, I think, for us getting our first few mega machines up. So now with all of this up, let's start worrying about how we're going to send power around. And believe it or not, which is a really cool little thing you can do, you can actually right click on these wires, and it just immediately puts the wire in your pocket, so you don't have to worry about it dropping everywhere and potentially falling in the lava in this particular case. But what I want to do is I want to start running our wiring into this room here, because this is going to be a place where we're going to hopefully have some branches off here, maybe for some much larger machines that we're going to possibly need. And so essentially this is going to be our massive battery that is going to lead over here. So I've got to kind of figure out where at in this wall does this open up into this room. Okay, so right about here, which is good to know, because what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to have the cables running into here into a battery that's going to be our basic buffer for right now, and we need it to have access to the outer wall. And there is an interesting way of doing this, believe it or not. So if you take two wire connectors and you place them on opposite sides of each other, and then you utilize your hammer from, or the engineer's hammer from Immersive, and you right click on this, this now becomes a feed through insulator. So we now have a path through this wall utilizing the immersive engineering. So this is pretty neat, because what this should allow us to do is it should allow us to have a battery that is essentially hooked up to this one connector, and then we can bring it through this wall and kind of keep everything nice and secure back here. Just a nifty way of, you know, adding a little bit of a decorative flair to your base. Now, speaking of decorative tips, this right here is another very useful and decorative piece, which is the wooden posts. And there's also a couple of other posts that you can make, but these are going to be very handy for moving power around our area. So I can go ahead and place a post right here, and then it also gives us access and keeps it out of the way, so we're not getting hit by it. Because yeah, I don't think there's anything worse than just getting smacked in the face with a cable. But we should be able to, for example, connect to the bottom of this, and then maybe have another post over here for whatever power, connect to the bottom of that, and possibly have a post over here. And something cool that you can also do is on these posts, you can activate two sides just like that. And it kind of looks like, you know, your modern day regular posts that you'll see holding power lines. At least here in the US, they kind of look like this. Of course, much, much taller. But I typically like to have them the single post hanging out, or maybe one post hanging out, as I think that looks a little bit nicer than having both. Now, something I'm also going to do is I'm going to place down my accumulator, the same one that I had, and this does carry the power over. So if you wanted some portable power, this is something you can also use for that. But I'm gonna have the input on this side, and then I'm going to make an output on this side, and we should be able to send that, for example, down here, hopefully. I do have a bunch of connectors on me, and it's a nice that inside of the engineer's toolbox, you have access to your connectors down here. And so my wire relays, we can have a regular connector here, we can hook up to that, and then down here, I'm just going to relay to everything, including up top. And by the way, these work like ladders, so you're able to actually climb them. I mean, it really does make sense, because even posts, for example, that house these cables in the US, they typically have the ability for you to climb them as well. So we're officially a grade A lineman at this point, now in immersive engineering. So now all I have to do is connect things up, and look at this. Now these do have a max distance that they can travel, but I don't think we're going to be exceeding that for a while. And another cool little thing about this, if you have cables extending from one location to another, and through connectors, they will remain chunk loaded, or they will still carry the power through unloaded chunks, I should be saying, so long as the main chunk and the input chunk and the output chunk are still chunk loaded. So it'll actually carry it all the way through, which is a nice little thing to know. And by the way it looks connecting up to this is just like that. So now we have it all connected in. And now for the fun part. We've got to carry our signal through a relay, for example, and we've got to connect all of these up to this relay here. So just a few thousand connectors later, and we should have a decent amount of power that is just going to last us a little while. Now, something to note about this power generation method. At this particular scale, I think if we're going off of old numbers, which I don't know if they're still the same, this should be generating about 256 power per tick, roughly. And so something to kind of to note that each one of these are generating about 15.8 power per tick technically. So it may be a little bit under that. We don't have any way of having any direct reference to this other than a formula where you essentially, to be able to get the power, you would need to know the heat factor of each block. For example, uranium, a block of uranium is going to have a certain heat factor. Lava, for example, I believe has a heat factor of 1300, and whereas the water is 300. So essentially you take the 1300 and you subtract it by the 300 and you'll get your number. That number then needs to be squared, and then you need to divide that number by 2. I know, new math in Minecraft, but that will get you your RF per tick rating. But you would also have to know what the heat factor is. And wouldn't you know it, here's a perfect list of items that we can use that have different heat factors. So there we go. So lava is 1300 and water is 300, just like I said. So your perfect output in this particular case would be uranium blocks, which I think we're going to get by the end of this chapter, and blue ice. Those two would be the two furthest away, which should get you the highest generation factor. And believe it or not, it's not much better than what we're currently getting, as that number would equate to about 21 power per tick per generator. I know one of you out there is just yelling, nerd! I know it. I know you're doing it. So now enough of me nerding out. Let's go ahead and create this death trap, because 100% that is what this is. Because if I step into these cables, I am taking damage, and I'm probably going to take a lot of damage. And so I've got to be kind of careful walking through this. For one, not to step in the lava, because there's no like grave mod in this pack. So if you do die, your items just kind of go poof. And if I'm near this lava, well, those items go poof and I am dead. So yeah, and so are all my items. Man, oh man, is this a spectacle to behold. Look at all of this. It looks like we're a master fisher of power right now. And this is the Death Trap 9000. Like, just walking in that, I mean, that would end us. But all that power should be transferable, because I think this goes up to 104 or 1048 power transfer on these LV wires. Whereas each of these nodes can only ever output a maximum of 256 power per tick. So these lines can actually carry more than that. But you cannot actually output more out of these LV connectors. And of course that power continues to increase depending on the level of wire, because right now we're just on low voltage. And to be fair, most machines in this pack actually just run off of regular low voltage. So with that, I should be able to now connect this up. And voila, we now have a power connection that is streaming from one side to the other and has a block that we can actually cover up. That is pretty cool looking. And we can kind of disguise this a little bit. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of flare throughout. Might as well. Like a nice little section here. Just like that. And of course, I got some more decorating to do, but for right now, we definitely have some power running through. And I'm probably going to do the same thing with a connector running out. And I'm going to have that running through this wall. Now, another little thing, even though I know this is like jumping off course again, for decoration, the green color leaves look way better than these oak leaves. Like, they're just a bit more vibrant, and I think it definitely adds. So just judging by this, it looks dark, dreary, sort of depressing, honestly. But when we walk in here, these leaves are a lot more bright and a lot more vivid, and I think adding a little bit of foliage definitely is helping my sanity during this playthrough. Okay, with the decoration out of the way, let's talk a little bit about how to automate a few things as we work our way towards that mixer. So when it comes to simply automating the mechanical press, the simple thing you can do is just put an inventory that is connected to the belt on the end, and then you can actually place a hopper directly on the back of the press. As a hopper will actually insert the items onto the belts, as you see here. And then I just have this going on here. So let me go ahead and just place in 4 of these iron, and you'll see that that is going to make its way onto the press one at a time. which is very, very nice. That's exactly what you want it to do, and you can see it's auto inserting into this barrel. So we now have a few iron sheets, and that's because I'm going to need those, because the mixer actually does require, at least for like the hopper section of it, it's going to require some iron sheets. And so this is how this is sort of built. It's not that complicated. However, it is going to require a bit of iron, as we are now introduced into a new block that we haven't made yet, and that is the light engineering block. And we get 4 of them, so this one machine is going to cost, I believe, 2, 4, 6, 8. It's going to cost 8 iron just in those blocks alone. Now, the reason I tell you this is because I do want you to have an understanding of how sparse these resources are at the moment. It takes quite a bit. So for example, for me to make a stack of iron inside of this machine, it ends up costing one stack costs 2 charcoal stacks, which I do have it automated, so it looks a little bit better. And it also costs a stack of lapis and a stack of redstone. And that is just to make 1 stack of iron, to make that void iron. It also, by the way, takes 9 stacks of void nuggets, because we have to turn this into an entire stack of void itself, void ingots. So yeah, I'm just trying my best to convey that, because I mean, it doesn't always translate through the videos whenever you just see me completing the infrastructure and not necessarily crafting everything. So I now have everything ready to go to build the mixer, which is going to be our next step. And it says vats of cookie dough. Delicious. But you can see the material list right here, which is a nice little thing that allows us to see if we have everything needed. So let's see if we can build all of this all in one go. And you can see the pink block right here is actually the block that is going to be clicked with our hammer to initiate the build. So I should hopefully be able to build this out. I'm going to place it right here for right now. And so it is a 3x3 block. Let me go ahead and move my torch here. And this 3x3 block is going to have a center section of pipes. So it's going to look kind of like that. And then we're going to be starting our engineering blocks. This is going to go up, and then it's going to, oh, get shocked. And then it's going to go over, and then technically it goes up, but in this back section is going to be our iron sheets, which is going to be kind of like that hopper section. And then we're going to have our redstone engineering block, which is the redstone controlling component for this, this machine. And then last but not least, we have one more engineering block, which is going to go right there. And then we have one steel fence that goes right on the corner. And I think that's it. And then all we have to do with our hammer is right click this block right here, and voila, we now have the mixer. And boy, oh boy, you can tell I've built a few of these before. Oh man. Yeah, quite a few of them actually. And so having a lot of these, I've got most of them kind of memorized. Now, when it comes to powering these things, you're going to see a little copper dot on the top. And that copper dot, oh, I'm putting the wrong thing on there. The copper dot is how we're actually going to power it. So we'll put a connector on top there, and then we can add our wire, and voila, we now have this machine powered. But we still have to get fluid into this machine to do the operation that this wants us to do. And so the blue is input slots. So the input slots down here, and this one actually has a GUI, and you can see this is output only bottom fluid, and then output all fluids. So output bottom typically is what you'd want, and it means it's going to output from this spot right here. And this is where you're going to input from. So blue is input, orange is output. And this machine often has like physical items that are going to go into it. So that's why we have these input slots here in what I would call the mixing hopper part of the machine. So what do we need to put in here? Well, we actually need to get lava in here. So we've got to get a fluid into this for this mixer to turn on. And for this, we need to make ourselves some blazing fluid. And blazing fluid requires us to input in blazing powder as like a catalyst, and then we also have our lava that needs to go in here. And so to make one bucket, we are going to need an entire bucket of lava and 4 blaze powder. Now, to make this a little easier from getting the fluids in there right now without using any kind of pump and just to do it by hand, we can actually make a metal barrel. Now, you could also use a wooden barrel for things that aren't lava, but lava, if you try to put it in the wooden barrel, well, the barrel is going to disappear, essentially. I mean, it makes sense. This is a pretty flammable wood. It is water resistant, but it is definitely flammable. So the barrel is going to be our best option, and this requires a little bit more iron. So now that I have my metal barrel, we can actually take a look at how this works. So in the top, you can see there is an input slot, and there's also an output slot on the bottom. So you can see right here, and it does auto output to the bottom. And it also holds fluids and allows us to pick it up and move it around. So this is a pretty convenient little block right here. Now, I don't remember if this is the fluid input. I think it is the fluid input down here at the bottom. But the way we can get the fluid in is just like placing a pipe, for example, here or here. I've got to figure out which one is which. But placing this right on top here should drain the lava, just like that, into the machine. So that's a simple way of just getting it in. Now, getting the fluid out, that's going to be a different story. We would technically have to pipe the items out, or another convenient way is we should be able to just right-click a bucket on here. So let's go ahead and get the items in that we're going to need, and that is going to be the blaze powder. And on the machine is, and you can see it actually working right here, which is kind of neat. Very loud machine, by the way, but there we go. Now we have the blazing fluid. And let's see, what does this want us to put it in? It wants us to put it in an iron bucket. I don't know if it requires specifically an iron bucket, but just for the sake of what the quest says and my sanity, I'm going to put it into an iron bucket because it's probably requiring it. So there we go. At this point, we can definitely upgrade to iron because that's probably it's probably the easiest material for us to generate at this point. And so, boop, I think we can just scoop it right out. Oh, maybe we can't just scoop it right out. Can we put it inside of this? So we might have to make another one of these. Can this go automatically? Can it be automatically pulled into here? It can. So perfect. So now we have it. Now it's pulled out. I thought we could just click a bucket right on there, but apparently not. Awesome. So perfect. Now, by the way, something that you're probably going to note, and I think I've experienced this before, if you have this automatically set up with lava going in, it will automatically send lava out as well. So you're going to have to use something else for this output, and that is going to be a fluid router. So a fluid router is going to allow you to technically automate this whole production process if you wanted to, where you would have to filter your output. That way it doesn't automatically drain out your lava as you're putting it in. But judging by the uses of this fluid, I don't really think this is going to be something we have to automate, at least at the moment. It looks like we're just going to use this for a mesh, for two different types of mesh. We have the copper mesh and we also have the iron mesh. So yet again, why I kind of designed my meshes to be a one on one side and one on the other. It looks like I can run iron on one and I can run copper on the other. However, it does look like our copper is going to be used a whole lot more than this one, as this item is a budding block from the looks of it. And so we're only going to need a few of those for garden cloches. And then it also appears to be used underneath our summoning block. So now we have another fluid to put under the summoning block, and it'll allow us to summon magma cubes, which from the looks of it is what our next progression is leading to. So magma cream is what we're going to be working towards next, and it wants us just to immediately put it underneath this and start summoning those. Now before I start summoning those mobs, I did go through like a killing rampage of skeletons, and you can get it to the point where the skeletons are just basically cramming and they start to annihilate each other, and so you can farm up bones quite quickly. But in that process, I also ended up getting 16 of these basic loot boxes, and I have no idea what they're going to grant me. So this is my inventory, and it looks like it's giving us cabbage. I think we've already gotten tomatoes. It gives us carrots. So it gives us a lot of the crops and seeds. Oh, that's fantastic. So melon, we still, I think, are missing pumpkin. I don't think I've received any pumpkin yet, but there's more tomato seeds, cabbage seeds, but still haven't gotten any onions either. Now I am kind of curious as to how this is actually going to function. Judging by the small base here, I don't know how big of a slime this spawns. Oh, just like the small version. Okay, these are the ones that actually drop in the first place. So hopefully we will get one. Oh man, that is a disturbing image of that thing getting broke. Oh no, it just like breaks into all of its different pieces. But there we go. So now we have ourselves some magma cream, and it looks like this is how we're going to get slime balls. And slime balls are put through purified water, so through our meshing system, and we have a 100% chance of getting the slime ball back. And then of course, we're going to take any sapling and we're going to make ourselves some lime colored saplings, and this is going to get us the lime saplings from 4 slime balls. So we definitely have to take out a few of these guys. I just find it absolutely awful the way that that physics animation looks as they're, oh no. Oh, that's so disturbing. The way they just fall into, oh, slices. I'm falling in love with this physics mod, by the way, because that's gonna be the coolest thing I've seen in a while. And then I can come over here, and now I don't have the ability to see through here yet, but I thought about changing out my chest on the top here, to be the clear ones, I think we can actually make any kind of chest. And so if we made these frame chests look like glass, then we'd be able to see what kind of colors in the background. And I think that'd be kind of helpful. Outside of that, there may be like item frames we could potentially use, but this is where we need to put this. So 4 of these are going to grant us that sapling. And I'm going to keep the other one, you know, just for going forward. But you can also kind of see the icon on the front as well. But to be able to automate this successfully, you have to make sure that you're sending meshes into it. And then you also have to make sure you're sending your items in. So it kind of covers where it would actually show those inside of this this setup. But, you know, that will probably change as we move on down the road. It does look like applied energistics is something we get into, and that will probably make all of these processes a lot nicer looking. So I now should be able to grab out a sapling, and we will get ourselves a lime one. And back to growing more saplings in this process. Looks like we get 2 more slime. And yes, colored leaves, apparently, whenever we get these leaves, it's going to lead us into uranium nuggets. And remember how I said it gives you a little bit more power out of these? I'm assuming at first that's probably what you could use this for. But it's just not that much extra power, honestly. Because at that point, we're talking about an extra 5 RF per tick per generator at that point. So back to farming some more leaves. But at least these leaves are going to give us something interesting. It looks like if we put them through water, it's going to grant us uranium. So now that we have that quest out of the way, we are 1 step closer to actually finishing this chapter. However, there's still a couple of other things we need to complete. For example, the bronze gear, but I already have the gear press for this. And we also need to make ourselves an iron gear, at least to satisfy the quests. So with a boop, that should be getting us uranium. And it shouldn't take too long. Honestly, I can put a little bit on both sides, and that's why I have all of these strainers, because it's going to make this so much faster. Oh, wait, I just noticed. No, this actually requires iron meshes. So yes, I'm going to be converting this side specifically to iron. So if there's just a little bit of moving around of our items here, now, there we go. That's more like it. And this is going to start processing up, and I'm definitely going to move these all over to the rest of these guys over here. Sort of throw in here, when it comes to making the gears, this whole setup that we have going on right here does not actually work for automating these gears, simply because this only sends 1 item at a time. However, if you did have a belt line running up to this, then and if this was 1 off, then this whole setup would definitely work. But for right now, I'm just going to toss these in. When it comes to actually automating them, because it requires 4, we're going to have our belt extended a little bit. And there's also an item batcher that does this exact thing. So it would allow this to batch up the items to 4, and we could specifically say only send that many out. But with that said, there we go. We now have some uranium nuggets. And that is another chapter done. Oh, I love that sound. And so with all of our new power in place and our massive machine chapter now finished and an understanding of how the immersive engineering machines work, I'm going to have to call it an episode. And I hope you guys did enjoy today's episode. Of course, if you did, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hopefully you'll learn some good tips. And like I said, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up. And with all of that, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks, by the way, is going to go out to Bajits. I think I said that right. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support in choosing to support me over on Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. And guys, if you're looking forward to join the Discord, all you gotta do is find it linked down in the description below, or go to discord.gg/ChosenArchitect and join the amazing crew today. And with that, I bid you farewell. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!